Tonight, Aurora Police is answering questions about using pepper spray and less lethal munitions on people protesting the death of Elijah McClain. Those protests yesterday began peacefully.
But hours later and well into the evening, police say the demonstration turned unlawful. Police say protesters began pushing down a fence and armed themselves with rocks and sticks. The department says some protesters threw things at officers or they refused an order to move. Aurora Police say, as far as they know, nobody was actually hit by the less lethal munitions.
Those are some of the questions that Aurora Police are answering tonight about that use of force and the decision to use the force in the first place. Here's 9 News reporter Jordan Chavez.
Aurora Police is answering a lot of questions and criticisms today as people post videos showing confrontations between protesters and officers on social media. Now, Aurora Police says it did use less lethal munitions like pepper spray and smoke, but at this point they say how much was used is unknown. APD says those specific tactics were not part of a coordinated effort and that they were deployed by individual officers against protesters police claim threw water bottles at them, as well as armed themselves with rocks and sticks and removed plywood from windows they were protecting. Yesterday was also one of the first large demonstrations since Senate Bill 217, a police accountability bill which was signed into law by Governor Polis. The new law specifically says officers can't aim those less lethal munitions at protesters' backs, heads, or even pelvises, and it also says they have to be aimed at specific people, not fired randomly into a crowd. And if any are going to be used, a clear warning with time to respond must first be given. In Aurora last night, police say they gave warnings for the crowd to disperse, both in person and on Twitter. Today, we reached out to Democratic State Senator Leslie Herod, one of the sponsors of that new police accountability bill, for her take on Saturday night's protests. She told us, quote, "If you're not upset by what happened in Aurora, you're not paying attention. Senate Bill 217 will apply some protections, but a law is only so good as the people elected to implement them. I'm calling on Mayor Mike Coffman to specifically address the use of chemical agents on protesters last night and to take swift action to rectify the situation." On Twitter, Mayor Mike Coffman thanked Aurora Police Chief Vanessa Wilson for keeping the protest under control. We have reached out to him in his office for further comment and are waiting to hear back. In Denver, Jordan Chavez, 9 News.
Today, Aurora Police also spent a lot of time knocking down a claim that they used tear gas canisters on protesters last night. Some videos from protesters show clouds of haze in the air. One of the videos shows officers launching something into the crowd that spews smoke. Protesters say it looked like tear gas, but the department insists it was only smoke used to, quote, encourage people to move to the safe area after the order to disperse was given.